I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Schmack-a-macabre, it's time for the only news that matters. And Billy Joel explained why he thinks the Beatles' White Album is a poor album, while sharing his personal theory about the British band's history. He reveals his thoughts on a recent edition of Bill Maher's Club Random podcast and the conversation about the best and worst double album in history. Asked about the Beatles' self-titled ninth release from 1968, the one double-length LP, Joel said, "I'm not a big fan of the White Album. I hear it as a collection of half-assed songs that they never did finish writing because they were too stoned or they didn't care anymore." He continued, "I think John Lennon was kind of disassociated somewhere at that point. I think Paul McCartney was carrying the weight." He agreed with Maher's assertion that both songwriters were probably pursuing hit singles in an era before albums became the focus of record sales, with Maher pointing out that toward the end of the band, McCartney's compositions were more successful on the 7-inch vinyl format. "I have a theory," Billy Joel says. "I think that they almost broke up a couple of times, just like a marriage, but it was never talked about. It had to look smoothed over for the 10 years that they were famous." Joel also explained why he refused the chance of working with Beatles producer George Martin, even though he agreed that it would have helped him in his early career. He said, "I love the Beatles more than anybody, and he was the fifth Beatle. But George Martin did not want to use my band, and that's part of my sound." Elsewhere in the interview, he hailed Cream's Wheels of Fire and Jimi Hendrix's Axis Bold as Love, both of which Maher dismissed. Joel also admitted that he attempted to emulate other artists while he was searching for his own sound, noting, "I'm not Zeppelin. I tried to be, and it was a complete disaster." All right, there you go. I like me some Billy Joel, and I did get to see him, man. He was a bucket list, but I saw him much later in the day. Might have been maybe a decade ago. I took my niece. Always wanted to see Billy Joel. Always owned The Stranger as a little kid. And I liked the radio hits growing up, and and I ended up buying all his records because I found them for like $1 a piece at this place where I used to buy like cheap records before vinyl came back. And I can't say like there's a whole album I like of Billy Joel. I think The Stranger is almost all good. And the same with Glass Houses. I think those are the two albums that I think are my favorite. I'm not saying they're the best. They're the best to me. But let's get back to the Beatles' White Album. Him dismissing the Beatles' White Album, to me, makes total sense. Now, I think the Beatles' White Album is probably their second best. Second or third best. Rubber Soul, Revolver, and White Album are my three favorite Beatles albums. But I can understand if you were a Beatles fan back then. I wasn't. I was 2 years old when that album came out. And but if you were into the Beatles, and you dealt with some of the changes, they took you through some changes, man. From the mid-period, starting at Rubber Soul to Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour. Billy Joel hung with that. All right, and Magical Mystery Tour, you saw that where they were going. It was getting weird, the Walrus and, those lame George Harrison songs, whatever. Then when they went to White Album, man, I can hear a big difference. That album to me sounds very loose. Not so constrained by the looming legendary name Beatles. Where I think the White Album may be the most organic Beatles album ever. And I love that album, man. And it's one I play the most. But you know, it ends with "Cry Baby Cry" because I cannot stand Revolution Number 9 and Good Night. Those two songs. Yeah. And I will say this too, and you know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. And it is Beatles talk, man. Let's talk some Beatles here. And you all tell me what you feel. This is how I feel about John Lennon, period. His peak for me was the White Album. I don't think he wrote anything as good in his solo career, on Abbey Road, you know, She's So Heavy, Come Together, all great tunes, you know, but I don't think they're as good as Glass Onion, I'm So Tired, you know, so many great songs there. Sexy Sadie, oh my God, I just thought he was on a major role. Yes, they were talking about Paul having more the hits where, yeah, because Paul wrote more jingly, jangly, catchy songs where John Lennon was more, I don't know, kind of rebellious in a way, not really. I don't think John Lennon was searching for a hit where I think Paul was. Of course, in the early days, John was. But I think by this time, he was just comfortable being John Lennon, and I don't care if I write a hit song or not, where Paul delivered, man. Paul always delivered. Paul's a friggin' genius, you know? And so I can understand why he didn't like White Album, because it is a very loose album, you know? Too many songs, which I love all the songs, except last. Yeah, there's a couple other ones I don't like, but for the most part, it's a great album. George Martin said that it could have been a good single album, that he thought there was a lot of dead wood on it, and man, I would hate like them to, you know, scrap all these songs so you don't have, you know, George Martin would have totally taken out Happiness Is a Warm Gun, you know, because that song is so out there, and you know, a bunch of other amazing fucking songs. Everybody's Got Something to Hide except for Me and My Monkey. Yeah, that'd have to go if it was up to George Martin, you know. So I think that's what makes that album amazing. You got the beautiful ballads, you got the heaviness with Helter Skelter, and Everybody's Got Something to Hide. And it's just an amazing album with the band that I think is the greatest band that ever existed. Which is funny enough, not my favorite band. My favorite band is 70s Sabbath and 80s Merciful Fate. I prefer both those bands. Those are my favorites. But I can't lie to myself. They may be my favorites, but they're not the best. The Beatles are the best. Yeah, I know all you listening don't think that way. But you see, I'm kind of like insane. So that's how I feel. I have my favorite bands, and my favorite bands is actually not the greatest band ever, which is the Beatles, and which is my opinion. If you think different, hey, my condolences. It's all good, and I love a lot of Billy Joel songs, man. The song that made me buy The Stranger, Only the Good Die Young. That's the song that got me into him. And then, you know, Glass House is just a fantasy. It's a great song. And that other song, Honesty. Oh my God, that song. That must be the most touching Billy Joel song ever. He did an amazing cover of a Bob Dylan song, Just to Feel Your Love. That is the most, I've heard Bob Dylan's cover, but you know, Bob Dylan, he was a genius songwriter, man. I mean, lyricist. But people took what Bob Dylan did and made it way better. And I think Billy Joel, of the only version, I've only heard a couple versions of that Bob Dylan song. Billy Joel's my favorite version. And he did this other one, a Motown song called Hey Girl. I can't remember who did that one. Beautiful. I love a lot of Billy Joel stuff, man. You know, Pressure is a cool song. And, oh, I can go on and on. The Entertainer. And then there's songs I can really care less about. I don't like Piano Man. I don't like Captain Jack. Just the Way You Are. I'm not a fan of that one. I'm not a fan of My Life. You know, a lot of his hits I don't like much, but then I love all these other songs, like Allentown, I think's a great song, and Goodbye Saigon. Oh, I can go on and on about Billy Joel. And I don't talk about Billy Joel that much on this channel, so I figured, hey, man, Billy Joel, he feels this way about the White Album, so let me talk about that, and let me talk about a little bit of my love for Billy Joel. What do you all think? You love Billy Joel, or do you hate Billy Joel? I welcome all opinions in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching The Only News That Matters. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Ring that little notification bell and like the video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty. Listen to Honesty by Billy Joel. And smack 'em a cob.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.